Hey, this is Chip. Welcome to On the Chain. We've got a very special guest here with us today. We have Jeff, as always. We have an international roundtable going on today. We have a very special guest, Lord Lionel. Welcome to the roundtable. You can
Good
talk.
afternoon.
Yeah, right on. So there you go. Welcome to the roundtable. And so this is interesting. So I'm right now in Miami. Lord Lionel, where are you coming to us from?
I'm coming from London, southeast London.
Southeast London. And Jeff, you are?
I am broadcasting in from Germany.
Nice. So it's truly an international forum here. A little background on Lionel. He's a former banking professional. He knows all the ins and outs of banking. He has been pretty much across the board, any kind of slot. So we're going to probably talk a little bit about banking. We're going to talk about central banks here today on this discussion. So Lionel, just a little brief intro about yourself, so we can let people know your background.
Okay, so I started at a very early age in banking. I was roughly about 18 years old. I retired in February of this year. I started out as just in a normal little accounts clerk, but in those days we didn't have computers. It was all handwritten ledgers. I introduced computers into the bank that I was working for. The bank I worked for was created by a friend of the family. It was a new bank. They'd been around for a few years before I joined. And I introduced all the networking, the internet, so they can use the internet, the email. I created an internal accounting package all by myself, and a portfolio package and a revaluation package. I got to understand all the banking products. I had to report to the board of directors on a daily basis. And I was there for 10 years, and I became ill and then took a break for 2 years and came back after that 2 years to go into contracting, to do BA work and PM work and hybrid work for the likes of JP Morgan, Schroders, Citibank, UBS, Sumitomo Banking Corporation, to name a few others. Oh, and RBS as well. RBS was crucial because did that during the height of the crash of the market, actually. Mm-hmm. I was sorting out the big mess from the ABM, AMRO, and RBS, where they got merged, and I had to separate the data from the two banks. So yeah, I've been around the houses.
Nice. Might have been easier for you to name the banks you didn't work at. It might have been a shorter list. So you got quite an impressive, resume there. So yeah, well, thanks for being here today.
You're welcome.
I wanted to ask you. So I just heard something. There was one of the ex-central bankers. Who was the guy that was running the ex-central bank? He basically came out against Bitcoin, saying that Bitcoin was a farce. And as everyone knows or may not know here joining us right now, but Lord Lionel is a BTC hunter, man. He hunts them. I get some of the best tweets you put out there make me laugh like there's no end, man. Some of the things you come up with and some of the pushback you get, but he came out and said he just didn't think it was good. What do you think the central bank's take is on, let's say, digital assets in general? Like, are they in full-blown panic mode, or are they just trying to figure it out? What's your take on that?
I don't honestly think they're in panic mode. I think the USA central bank may be in a bit of panic mode. I think that's more to do with the US dollar reserve status. But we know that that's going to change because everybody wants it to change. The Bank of England, Mark Carney, has already stated it's going to change. We know Christine Lagarde is intending on that changing. We know Russia, China want that to change. Russia, China, Brazil, they got their own thing called BRICS that they created, I think, 2012. Don't quote me on that. It was around about that time. And that's supposed to be like their new reserve currency. And from what I understood the other day, they're going to digitalize that. So, but I couldn't find anything referring to Ripple on it. But I would imagine that XRP would be a bridge to that at some point. But that's just speculation on my part. I've got no idea.
Well, that's a good point that you're bringing up, and especially when it comes to banking. You have three countries with three currencies that have no stability.
Yeah.
Yet they want to become a global trade currency and a global reserve currency. And you can't have a reserve currency or a trade currency if you have struggles with your own currency. In Russia, for instance, their economy is still heavily tied to the price of oil. And Brazil, has its own internal struggles. China obviously has its, currency manipulation issues. How would they, and so I think it's even more interesting, that China now, and that's kind of a segue into the conversation of China introducing a digital currency, and what their control mechanisms might be. But let's talk about the first part first, because I think that's there's a lot to talk about there. What's your perspective on that? I mean, you have three countries with three currencies that have no stability.
Well, stability, that is really going to be down to the countries and their policies that they introduce. But also, I think if you've got a combination of more than one country or sharing the same currency, I would have thought that would maybe strengthen it a bit more rather than actually making it weaker, because you're combining the three. Well, it's more than three because it's South Africa as well. And and I would imagine there'll be other countries that will get involved because it's a reserve currency, don't forget. Yeah. So it's just about a matter of stabilizing it. I mean, look at the US dollar reserve currency. They're printing dollars like there's no tomorrow. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's still very strong when I look at it compared to the pound. Yeah, it's nuts. Yeah. So, I mean, I can't. It's too difficult. There's too many things involved to be able to predict how a currency can work, because there's a lot of manipulation going on as well. Yeah. So there's a lot of other factors involved. The US dollar is. I mean, I don't get why it's so stable. It doesn't really make much sense to me. If you're going to print more dollars, surely the value should drop, but it doesn't. It just doesn't. And you've got other countries, Russia have dropped the dollar for the euro with regards to the oil now, so they're using the euro. Yeah. So my belief is with the BRICS, I would imagine at some stage the euro will join it as well, maybe support it and make it more stabilized. I'm guessing here. Yeah. I'm not an economist. Yeah. So
I thought you were. That's weird.
Yeah.
I thought Jeff told me you were an economist.
No, I'm not an economist.
No, I'm just kidding. Okay.
Yeah. But there's a lot of factors, it's like futures, futures are leading bang to the market. It's such a manipulative product. When I was working for one of the banks I was working with in the futures side of things, I was basically doing their client money, sorting out their client money problem, because in those days the banks were merging the client money with the bank's money, and that shouldn't have been allowed, because the bank was earning the interest, and the client wasn't getting any interest on that money, so that got all segregated. But I was seeing trades from people, from somebody at number 71, our Bath Street, Slough, in a little flat, doing futures trading on oil. Now, please tell me, how's he going to take delivery of oil? Yeah. Why are these people trading in futures? It should be only related to people that can take delivery. Yeah. So you got too many. There's so many factors in there that I think shouldn't be in there. I think there's a lot of change that needs to happen. I don't think it will happen because I don't seem to see the regulators really hurrying up on these sort of things. We've still got insider trading going on in the stock market. It will never go away. I mean, if you go onto AD, I don't know if you've ever used ADVFN. It's just like it's a stock market thing. You can do trading on there, and it's got blogs on there, and you can read what people post. You can put invisible code in there to see who's typing in these blogs, and a lot of them are bankers. Yeah, they're personal investments in there, and you can see their IP address. They're not supposed to be blogging at all. Yeah, not
against
at all.
The regular contracts. Yeah.
Yeah. you know, if they get found out, they'd get fired. Um, so yeah, sorry, I drifted off from that, but there's a few things that kind of annoy me that happens. That still happens, and it hasn't changed yet. But yeah.
So, you know, the former Fed Reserve Chairman Alan Greenspan, he a couple of days ago, he came out and said that there was really no point for central banks to issue a cryptocurrency. He basically believes that he says the fundamental sovereign credit of the United States is far excess of anything Facebook can imagine. So what are your thoughts on just that statement alone?
Well, I think it's crazy. I mean, it's not really backed by anything either, unless you say the United States itself is being what's backing it. So, you know, you go bust, UK can come along and go, right, okay, the White House belongs to me, all the land belongs to us or whatever. I mean, how does that work, you know?
Yeah, I don't know how it works either, but if you think about it, like for example, Bitcoin, we keep hearing it's the store of value. It doesn't really have a use case. There hasn't been new developments in 11 years. And, you know, it really, unfortunately, for the general public, it's really all they know. It's like, yeah, you know, you talk to somebody about Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, and all they say is, that's a scam, or I would never do it. By the way, I talked to a friend of mine. And if he's watching this, I told him how I'm going to get him in a room after I pay for an amazing banging vacation for his whole family for a month. And then I'm going to put him in a room and lecture him how stupid he was because he didn't get involved. He still thinks it's a scam. It's not backed by anything. You're going to lose your money. You're going to get, you know, swindled. And I mean, I'm like,
I think there were a lot of lucky investors in Bitcoin in the early days. I mean, I saw it when it first came out and looked at it and I said, it won't work. It's too slow. Yeah.
There was one of them was right here, but he was too stupid to hold. He sold it thinking he 2 or 3 times X'd his money, and he was rocking it pretty hard. Didn't know it was going to go to 20,000 though. That was the problem. I got it in 2013.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised how many anarchists there are out there. I mean, I know that there are quite a few, but it's shockingly a lot. You know,
there's a lot of people that don't like government. But here's the thing about the anarchy conversation. So, what is your take on? Let's suppose we implement. I've heard so many people talk about anarchy, and that's the whole reason for Bitcoin to get away from the banks. But you know, look, this could take generations. But what do you think about if real anarchy was? Let's just say, okay, let's go to anarchy. What does that mean, anarchy?
That would be one complete mess. I mean, let's start with there's just 21 million Bitcoin, yeah, as far as I understand. Was it 18 million mined so far? Right. What's the population of the world? 6.5 billion?
Yes.
How do you divide that into 6.5 billion people? You know.
Well, not only that, 90% of it, 80% is held by the top 5%. So you take that out, plus the 4 million, 5 million that's lost forever because people threw their hard drives out when they mined in early days.
Yeah, exactly. But also, you've got to trust China. Yeah. I mean, the last figures I saw was somebody quoted 87%. I don't know if that's true. I've not bothered to check it, but I know it's high. I know. Last time I heard was 5 out of 6 miners are based in China. Now, we saw the debacle with CZ Binance when he requested to have the ledger rolled back. That is damn scary because that's saying that confirms that they've got the power to do that. Okay, they didn't do it, but they could have done it. Yeah.
They could have done it.
Yeah, and people are trusting that too much. You know, we've seen a lot of dodgy stuff come out of China. They do counterfeit stuff, you know, that they sell on Amazon and all that sort of stuff. What's not to stop them doing something with Bitcoin? You know, it's scary that people are trusting it. Now, everybody complains that XRP is not mined, and it's, you know, it's centralized. It's not. Well, my view is it's not centralized. There's so many people verifying the nodes. It's all over the place. Yeah. How can it be centralized? But also, there's enough coins out there, you know, for the population to use it, the world, you know. Okay, it's not backed by anything. Apart, you know, it's just going to be a bridge for the currencies, but that's what gives that value. And to me, that is store of value as well as utility. Bitcoin, I know it's the first one, okay, fantastic. It's not the first crypto. I mean, Alan Turing, he did crypto, back in the Second World War. It's not the first, yeah. As a currency, yes, but still, it's just a belief system. And I know in the US dollar, it's a belief system too, yeah. But not all currencies are belief systems. But also Bitcoin is very expensive as well to transact. In the UK, we got free banking. Why would I buy Bitcoin if I don't pay fees on using my debit card, withdrawing cash from the ATM? I use Revolut to send money abroad to Spain. I don't pay any fees. I just convert it to euros. It's instant. It's in Spain. Yeah. Why do we need Bitcoin? I understand it. If you're in a regime that's difficult, like say Iran or Venezuela or whatever. But even for them, that's too expensive for them, and the volatility of it, that's a huge cost for them. It's actually more damaging to these people than it is for them benefiting it. So,
well, it's kind of weird because remember Cyprus, that was the really big first use case we saw when that whole thing went down in Cyprus, where I believe they were basically, I guess, swindling people, taking over bank accounts. And this is when people were looking for a place to take their fiat. They needed to dump it into something, right? I think it was like around 2013, 2012. And you see what's happening in Venezuela, where they came out with their own coin that nobody wanted to use, the petrol. And then again, the two biggest coins, used down there are Bitcoin and I think it's Litecoin or Ethereum. It's one of the other top ones. How do you?
But that's because that's marketed so well. XRP isn't marketed so well. Yeah.
What should they do?
There needs to be marketing campaign for XRP. I remember, was it early this year, somebody was trying to get funding to do a marketing, to do advertising for XRP. I don't think it ever took off. I tried tweeting it out and get people moving on it, but it kind of got ignored. Just everybody's familiar with Bitcoin because it's just everywhere. You talk to anybody in the street, they've heard of it. A lot of them think it's a scam. Some people just trade it, they don't even look at the news. I spoke to one guy who knew about Bitcoin. I told him about XRP. Didn't have a clue what it was. Didn't know what any of the other coins are. He just goes, "No, just buy Bitcoin. I just trade in and out of it." I said, "Don't you find that scary? You're not checking the news. You don't know how it works." No, and I'd say a big portion of people that don't watch Twitter or YouTube and all that. They just heard about it in the paper or on the TV, download the app, they buy it, see it's gone up, sell it, then they'll come back in when they're comfortable with the price. There's nothing on the real outside media. Yeah, we got it on Twitter, we got it on YouTube. We need it on Sky News, we need it on BBC News. We've seen it, Brad on Fox News and stuff like that.
Well, we saw it in Congress. I forget which when they were doing the hearings. I forget which congressman had mentioned it.
They mentioned it, but still, he might as well have said like no. That's what it.
Well, he said, what did he say? Bitcoin is an XRP. Now, I think what's interesting, you think about, in some areas, like if you go down south in the U.S., they refer to soda as Coke, so everything is a Coke, right? So if you want to get a Pepsi, I guess you can order a Coke, if it's whatever, and, there's different names for it, but it becomes just like, Kleenex and tissue, and so is it going to be that, Bitcoin is going to be that, interchangeable, terminology for digital asset or cryptocurrency, because people have known about Bitcoin for so long. And when you talk about it, I still think there's potentially some confusion in the market, where Bitcoin is just what they know because it was the first word. And it's like you said, everybody talked about it. So is there going to be that kind of a transition? It's going to be interesting. I do think, where, for an outreach, whether it's going to be XRP, to me, I don't think it's the digital asset that people need to know about. It's the platform, So, if there's a platform that simplifies the utility of the product, that's going to blow up. People are going to say, "Oh my God, there's this app, or that allows me to do everything I need to do from a financial perspective. I can transfer my Bolivar, in Venezuela or whatever, and put it into this app somehow, and then I can transact it, and I can send dollars to somebody else, or I can do, I can move my money, I can get it out of the country. That's what most of them want to do. You look at, and it's interesting. So, you go to Miami, for instance, whenever there's turmoil in a country in South America, where do they put their money? They start buying properties sight unseen in the United States. And why do they do that? Because they need to get their money out. And they know if they put it into property, it's going to maintain value or go up in value. So, because of the Brazilian economy, there's areas where Brazilians were just buying properties over in the United States sight unseen, just to own the properties. Venezuela did the same thing. There's a ton of Venezuelans that were buying properties because the thing is, if they had a use case, they could get the right money that they could transact to put it into property. And I think you see the same thing in China. The Chinese are also, buying up properties in the United States, sight unseen, just so they could, own, just like the Japanese did it, in the 80s. Where did they go? They put money into property in the United States. And, and that's to get money out of their country, so, the mechanism in place. So that brings it back to the app or whatever that platform might be. It's not going to matter what the digital asset is, that's operating that platform. It's the fact that they're able to move their money. I think that's going to be the key behind it, right? What do you think?
I agree. Problem is, I agree that people move their money out of currency into, say, property. Problem buying property is you don't have any liquidity when you need it. So not exactly. You could sell a portion of your house and pop down to, a store and buy food with it. It's a bit difficult. You can't even do that with gold, to be honest. You have to go to a pawn shop first and cash it in. But the XRP ledger to me is perfect, as you say, because you can bring everything into one central place. But that's not actually happening really right now, is it?
No, it's not.
Yeah, when does that happen exactly?
Well, I was going to ask you another question, Lionel. So you've dealt extensively with Nostro Vostro, and I mean, what kind of a big deal is that from your perspective and from the banking side? Because just from an outsider, it looks like it's like what you had mentioned about the liquidity. I mean, having this on-demand liquidity seems to me like a pretty big deal. Like to be able to eliminate Nostro Vostro and not have to worry about that.
Yeah, let's correct things on that. I don't believe Nostro will totally disappear because obviously banks have branches overseas. And they need to have money in over there in order to pay their staff and office expenses and the rental for their buildings or whatever. So there'll be some sort of there'll still be funding in those Nostros to cover those costs. But the enormity of like the FX transactions is humongous. It is huge. For example, I can say it because it's years ago since I worked there. So Citibank, when I was there, my job there was to migrate all the FX over to new front-end systems, but also improve the credit risk systems and ensure everything flowed down through to finance and treasury and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. And also make sure the stress testing worked as well using a Monte Carlo scenario. That took a lot of work. And then I had to introduce compression for trades because the system couldn't handle the volume. We were doing 1.8 million per day, in trades. And the amount of money was huge. When Brad Combs said 350 billion, he was impressed. There's bigger money than that going through the system from what some of the big banks. So it's massive. And then if you think about us when we go on holiday and we're spending foreign money, you think how many transactions we do per day. You're talking gazillions of transactions occurring all over the world, cross border. but they're small amounts, yeah. They're like $40, $10, depending what you're buying. But it's a lot of transactions, you know. But these banks, yeah, they handle a lot of transactions. It is humongous. But when people say it's going to eliminate Nostro Vostro, that's not strictly true. There will still be, it still will exist. These banks need those accounts. They have to.
No, I think the thinking there is it's going to eliminate it from the funding of the more or less the cross-border type of payments.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's never going to go away. It's not like you're just going to close them up one day, but I think so. Jeff, you had something you wanted to pop in with?
Well, I think that's so interesting. You know, that's an area I really didn't think about. You know, people that are traveling, whether for work or for pleasure, they're spending more money on a daily basis than they would normally spend when they're traveling, because they have to go out to restaurants, they have to pay for their hotels, they have to pay for whatever it is on a daily basis. And if they're using a credit card, typically the credit card was issued from their home country in their home currency. And so there's potentially transaction fees that are involved in that. And there, you know, and there's conversion fees, you know, converting their, you know, the currency. Not with every card. Now there's cards that will, you know, where you won't have that applied, but at the same time, those are benefits, and you're paying, you know, highly for those cards potentially. But you know, those are all those, you know, they're almost like micro payments, you know, because, you know, if I go to a restaurant 3 times tomorrow and I spend on average, you know, anywhere between $25 to $100 on that restaurant to go out to eat, you know, 3 times, you know, so I could spend, you know, easily $150 in a day just on food potentially, you know. I mean, that's amazing, you know, those transactions, and you multiply that by millions of people, you know, those are, you know, cross-border payments that are happening that aren't really they're kind of cross-border, you know, because of the financial institutions, you know. I mean, that's an area I never thought about, you know, and you simplify that through the digital asset, you know, and through, you know, those kind of a mechanism. Again, if it's the backbone, you know, nobody knows what's happening.
Yeah.
And you can just move around, and you should just, you know, most consumers, you know, and Chip and I talk about this a lot, most consumers aren't going to care about the backbone. You know, most people in the world that send money overseas, you know, have no idea what a Nostro Vostro account is from a business perspective. They don't know how their bank does it. They just know their money gets there. You know, they don't even know that SWIFT exists, you know.
Eventually.
Right.
Yeah, people don't care. I mean, really, a lot of people, when they're paying, they don't, you know, it's just natural. They're not interested in how the system works. They just want convenience and speed. Yeah, they don't want to. They don't have to worry about, oh, I need to load up on Bitcoin today or whatever. Yeah, they know they've got a bank account. There's always going to be bank accounts. There's always going to be banks. People feel more safe with them. I know we've had scandals in the banking system, but they will still use bank accounts. It will not disappear. It's comfortable. They know where to go. If they've got a complaint to make, they know where to go. Yeah. It's the banks and the people like MoneyGram and all that will be using, you know, like moving the money for us, you know, the customers, the companies, and all that. And also the banks need to do mortgages and syndicated loans and letters of credits and promissory notes. There's all sorts of things. You know, there's, you know, interest rate swaps, multi-currency swaps. There's so many different products that, you know, that will move through, you know, having to use XRP because it involves multiple currencies, you know. But a lot of people generally are pretty lazy, you know, when it comes to things like this. I mean, I had to explain it to, you know, lots of friends. You know, I got friends who work in banks and don't even know what cryptocurrency is. You know, I had to tell them about it, you know. I got friends in banking that bought Bitcoin. And the first thing I say to them is, you should resign. That's an anti-bank coin. Why are you working in a bank? You know.
Good point. Well, we were told, but we were told that BTC Bitcoin was going to kill the banks. That's what I keep hearing. Like they're gone. They're gone. They're tomorrow. We're eliminating the banks.
No, that's for the anarchists.
Right. There's a lot
You know,
of
we've had this for years. I mean, every year we have, you know, riots in London, you know, where all the anarchists get together and decide to set fire to, you know, to a bank or whatever. You know, so, you know, they want to bring the banks down, but this is a small part of the whole world population. You know, they want ease. They want, you know, they're happy they can go to their phone and just go into, you know, I'm going to my Metro bank account and I see my balance. I know it's not going to go up and down in value unless I spend something. But if I put Bitcoin on, it can go up and down in value and I've not even touched it, you know?
That's right. Yeah, well, that's interesting too. You know, from that perspective, I think, you know, just to segue a little bit, I think, you know, the discussion over banks, and I talk about this a lot, that there's kind of a blending going on right now. You see what Coinbase is up to, you see what Uphold is up to, and there's, you know, other international exchanges that are doing the same thing. Binance, if you look at what they're up to, there's going to be a power struggle in the near future, whenever that might be, that's worth billions upon billions of dollars. And it's going to be whether or not the banks have enough money to buy the digital asset exchanges, or if the digital asset exchanges are simply going to be valued at such a high amount and they're going to have so much liquid cash available to them that they're going to start buying up the banks. But to your point, so my point, I guess my point is, you know, I don't think the banks are going away. I think our concept of who the bank is going to change potentially, right? So if Coinbase is getting into lending and loaning, you know, or lending and paying out interest on holdings, you know, on their exchange, if Binance is doing the same thing, if they have a lending program and they also have a paying out interest program, and, you know, Uphold has it and they all have it, they're getting into a banking environment. You know, and now they just have to, you know, it skews the whole picture a little bit. I'm not saying, you know, one way or the other. I just see that the only change that I see in banking is that power struggle. Who's going to own whom? Right?
Yeah.
Do you see that at all, or no? Is that?
I see where you're going with that. The thing is, though, imagine you're getting a loan from Binance and you're offering up Bitcoin to basically back that loan. What happens when Bitcoin goes down, drops $3,000? Does that mean you've got to find $3,000 all of a sudden in order to provide collateral for that loan?
Yeah, it's a disaster with the collateral.
You just don't have any stability there.
Right.
How could somebody pay their mortgage or bills or whatever if they don't know what they're worth tomorrow morning when they wake up? It's crazy.
Right.
As for banks buying exchanges, no, I don't believe that will happen. I think we'll see exchanges like the New York Stock Exchange, for example, become cryptocurrency exchanges, you know, that sort of thing. The London Stock Exchange will, you know, get involved in cryptocurrencies. And we're kind of seeing that already, yeah? So NASDAQ, you know, the NASDAQ's already showing XRPL on there. I personally think a lot of the exchanges will disappear. Binance might survive, I don't know. I mean, it's huge. Coinbase, possibly. I'm not a big fan of Coinbase after what they did to us back in 2018, to be honest. I think that was pretty damned awful what they did to everybody. But yeah, there you are. That happened. And I see a lot of people warning on, you know, Twitter saying get your money off the exchanges. I tend to agree because we just don't know what's going to happen, you know, to these exchanges. And also the other thing that bothers me is all this changing of how things is done. You know, coin market, that CMC are going to change the way they report the cryptocurrencies, showing liquidity. Now, when they do that, is that going to actually impact the prices? How's that going to work? I don't get that.
But how is the reporting going to be straight? I mean, they have a lot of issues right now. I mean, coin market cap, like CoinGecko, or what's it called? The Gecko? What's it called? Anyway, there's some other ones out there that monitor a little bit, but I just don't know if, again, you're getting into a level of trust with some of these, with people that report, and those numbers could be skewed at a level, maybe not by a lot, maybe some things aren't reported, over-reported, under-reported, but essentially there's a lot of power there. A lot of people put a lot of trust in that being the catch-all for what's happening in the marketplace. And I'm not so sure. Just a little bit of research I've done, I've seen some variables that they're missing. I've also seen different levels. You go to a couple different ones. So it's an interesting point you raised. Will it affect the price? I mean, I guess we have to wait and see. But I mean, if we're looking at a liquidity index, how is that going to shift the perspective of your average, of people, like your buying side, right? I mean, it happens in the stock market. Things go, interestingly enough, we had talked over here about the fact that we had these impeachment hearings here, and then the Dow goes to a 27,000 all-time high. It's like, it's mind-blowing, where sometimes you hear something reported in the news, and it's like somebody lost their sandal on an excursion, and boom, oh my gosh, panic set in, and all of a sudden the market drops. You've seen unrelated news, all of a sudden it tanks the marketplace, but something that should really affect the marketplace doesn't. So there's always that volatility. I think we're going to start seeing more of that happening with cryptocurrencies. You kind of see sort of parallels between the stock market and the cryptocurrency market, or do you think they're just too separate?
I think they're separate. I think there were coincidences when they both move at the same time. That's probably more to do with traders just following the stock market and go, oh yeah, I'm going to sell because the stocks are going down, or I'm going to buy because Bitcoin, because the stocks are going up, so I'm going to buy Bitcoin or whatever. There's an awful. I think there's an awful lot of manipulation going in crypto. I do know there's like there are groups of like 10,000 people in a chat, and they're going, right, okay, we're going to pump this coin next week, and unfortunately people follow them, and then they get stuck in that coin, they can't get out, and yeah, I mean, the regulators have got a lot to answer for. They're not chasing these people. They're doing nothing. Absolutely.
Well, you have the same
it's
problem
really
with
slow,
right?
Penny stocks.
A similar problem.
So,
you have the same type of chat groups that are pumping stocks, except when they get caught, there's some penalty.
Yeah, but they do get prosecuted. They do. Yeah, I mean, things do happen. It's a matter of catching them at it, though.
Right.
And it's very difficult with crypto because they're in these private chats. How do you get access to this chat unless you become an insider? And I can imagine they're very wary about adding new people. But and all these bots coming on Twitter. I mean, I've got 4,096 people following me. I only ever see about 100 people like my tweets or respond to a tweet. Where are these other 3,900? Are they real? Are they real people? What the hell? I mean, I think what goes through on Twitter now has zero impact on crypto now. They used to do scare tactics, with publishing FUD, and you'd see the price of any crypto move. Now it barely seems to do anything. It only seems to be Bitcoin that seems to pull everything up or down.
Right. Well, here's the latest news on that one. That's a good point. I was pulling this up before. There was an article that came up on Forbes today, or no, yesterday, and it says, right, perhaps Google will kill Bitcoin after all. That's their big thing.
Because of the quantum computing?
Well, no. So first there was quantum computing. They already put that to rest. That Google's not even in a active stage. It's still years away. But their point now is that Google, in partnership with Citigroup, is coming out with smart checking accounts. So Google is getting into checking. They're getting into banking. And so they're saying that and here's their statement right here. Let's see. Now Google, in partnership with U.S. banking, Citigroup, has said it's planning to launch its own fully fledged smart checking bank account via Google Pay. And then it says that they're piling pressure on Bitcoin developers to improve user experience and adoption or face redundancy.
How do they get?
It's amazing these statements, right? So you see these statements come out from mainstream, Main Street, reporting, and you can tell they really don't understand what they're writing about. They don't understand the digital asset space enough to really be reporting on it. It seems to me, but the person is a contributor on crypto and blockchain. I write about how Bitcoin, crypto, and blockchain can change the world. And yet they bring that statement up. So.
But who exactly are the developers? I mean, what kind of new developments happened in 11 years of Bitcoin being out there? There hasn't been any, they had to invent this layer called the Lightning Network on top of it to deal with some of the inefficiencies. But here's the funny thing. It's like, how are you going to do a microtransaction? You're going to give $1 payment and it's going to cost you 70 cents, right? And if you look at it in US, they're saying, 1 quid, 70p to go ahead and do a transaction. Wait, that doesn't seem like a good idea, right? And then they have all kinds of timeout issues too. But I mean, if there actually was true development happening in the Bitcoin community, you wouldn't have something like Lightning, right? And I think that's really what the value of XRP, seeing the shortcomings of what didn't work in Bitcoin, right? And this is like Lionel, I tell the story about how I got into it in 2013 with my last startup. Is that my partner, one of my partners was in Darby, and so he would send me Bitcoin. That's how I first started getting the money. How he could send it to me, because Swift was complicated, and I was just excited that I could get it in like a couple hours or maybe the next morning versus 3-4 days, and the complication and the fees we always got charged. So to me, that was like a really big sort of a value add. But I don't know. Can you guys tell me what kind of developments happened with Bitcoin over the last 11 years?
Last thing I saw was on Block TV, where they interviewed a developer, and he was complaining that there's not enough money out there for development.
Sincerely George. Who played that? Was it Sincerely George that played that?
Actually, I saw that again on the on last night's the awards thing. What's his name? Did the Notorious? I think he put it in his video.
Yeah, Notorious said it. Yeah, that was something. That was something pretty interesting. But yeah, there's nothing really happening. I mean, when you start hearing about Bitcoin being a payment rail, how loud do you laugh, Lionel, when you hear stuff like that?
I laugh a lot. I mean, it's just nuts. I mean, I keep thinking about they want everybody to use it, and I think about the number of people there are in this world. 6.5 billion people. It can't scale, right? So I got friends that have got it and go, but it's quick. Look, I moved it in 2 seconds. I said, yeah, because the network's not busy. Yeah, that's why it arrived. I said, you wait on a busy bull run day. I said, you try and get your coffee with it then. I was like, you haven't got a chance. You might get you might have to go and collect your coffee next week by the time it's processed. It's
exactly.
I just may as well get my bank debit card out and pay with that, or get fiat currency out of my pocket and pay, quicker. Now, XRP is so quick and it can scale. You don't have that problem.
Well, I think you just brought something up. You just brought something up I think is really interesting overall. Again, trying to find a problem where a problem doesn't exist. Chip and I talk about that a lot, that people are trying to create projects with blockchain they're trying to find the problem, and then they're proposing projects that really there wasn't a problem, and so payment right now for the majority of us isn't a problem. I mean, if I'm traveling with my credit card, I don't need digital asset to pay for a product immediately. That's not my problem, so I don't care personally, and this goes back to what we were saying earlier, right? I mean, I don't care personally, and I don't necessarily want to, especially in today's day and age right now, I don't want to use digital asset to buy anything, because I don't need to. Right.
We're hodling, Jeff. It's the whole name of your show.
Yeah, it's a long-term investment, right? But based on utility and the building, to me, I think it all goes back again to the platform, and it goes back to utility of the product, to where it's more of a behind-the-scenes product than in front of our face product. So for all of so for the majority of the world that is already in this spending habit, and you're able to use credit cards, digital asset really serves no purpose from that perspective. But
Yeah.
behind the scenes, it obviously does. From the bank's perspective, like we're saying earlier, their transaction, in terms of the speed at which they do it, the cost, and all of that to move money around makes a big difference when you're talking billions of dollars being moved for all these transactions. You look at another feature. I don't know if you guys have Zelle in the UK. I don't know if Zelle is just in the US.
I think it's a US thing only. It's just that are you familiar with Zelle at all?
I've heard of it.
Zelle. It's basically all the banks got together and said, hey, let's allow people to move money. I mean, it's like pretty much if I want to send Jeff money, it's like sending either I have his email or his phone number, and I can send. I use this into the contractors and everything else. It's fantastic.
It's amazing.
But it's just an agreement between the banks here. They all have it, right? They all
right.
It's like Revolut, to be honest. It's like Revolut, because on Revolut it works by phone numbers and email addresses, yeah. As long as I got a phone number of contact in my phone, when I go into my Revolut account, I can see them. If they got Revolut as well,
they don't have it in your Revolut though.
I think it should be there soon. I think
it's coming. I've been hearing that for the last 13 months. It's going to be here.
But it's on its way. But I
actually like it. Yeah, it is very good. I really can't fault it. Apart from their customer service side of it, it's a bit shit. Because it's very slow and you can't actually phone them up. You've got to go on a chat and you've got to wait. You've got to talk to a bot, and then you have to get away from a bot. You have to tell it you don't want. Yeah, and you got to wait. If it's busy because I don't know, they've done some maintenance, so the payments aren't going out. And there's because it's still a new company relatively, but they're doing incredibly well. It's impressive, and I think I'm not sure if they're partners with Ripple. But it just feels so Ripple, when you're using experience, because everything is so damn quick. And I know they like XRP, that's for sure.
What is Revolut moving? Is Revolut moving fiat?
Yeah, you can move fiat. Yeah, I can buy euro and it's done instantly. Boom, it's sent from.
It's all fiat based then. It's all
it's fiat based. They've also got crypto on there. You can buy Bitcoin and Ethereum and Litecoin and XRP.
But the base concept is to move money around.
Yeah, the concept is to move money around, but you got various different options. But it's impressive, and that's the way I see all the banks been. It'll be all like that. When you go in your app, you'll see all these different currencies in your when you want to choose to move it to, and you'll see your friend on there. They got the same bank account, or maybe you won't need to have the same bank in order to send money. They could be with Lloyd's and I could be with RBS, but I'll still pick them up because it will know, because it's using crypto. It can see there's a trusted network there or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, so the key is that with Zelle right now, like we're saying, it doesn't matter what bank you're on in the U.S. as long as they're participating with Zelle, then you can move money. It's instant. It goes.
Yeah.
You get an email or a text. You look in your account. You have the money. Obviously, the settlement is still taking days, but Bank A is trusting that Bank B, and they're communicating quickly and moving that money.
What I find funny about that, I mean, I was quite shocked when I heard that you don't have instant settlement over in the USA, because we've had it here in the UK for quite a long time now. It must be a good 4 years. I mean, I can send money from one bank account to another. I can have both my apps open. I'll send it from one to the other. It's done. It's instant. The money has moved. Okay, it's within UK. Yes, I'm using GBP. It's absolutely instant. I see it come out of that into the other. It's done. Yeah. Now, before I would send it, years before I used to send it, and I'd have to wait 3 to 5 days to see it land up in my bank account. Yeah. I don't get that experience anymore. And I would have thought that USA that would be happening already in the USA, because in Europe it already happens. Yeah. So,
I don't know what happens on the back end, really. I mean, it could be almost really anything, but I mean, it's instantaneous from a user perspective. So I mean, whatever they do on the back end is up to them. But I have a kind of a segue question here. This is we were talking, something you had mentioned earlier, Lionel. We were talking about the supply of Bitcoin, and so the Stellar Foundation came out and burned 55 billion of their coin from 105 billion and taking it down to 50 billion. And this is Jed McCullough, formerly of Ripple. I still haven't been able to find a good answer of why they burned like more than half of their supply. I mean, do you guys, any clarity on that? Ideas?
I saw a tweet rumor saying that was done because there was the threat of the exchanges were delisting it because nobody was buying it, which I could believe because you don't see a lot of volume go through it at all. It's got more and more unpopular. I mean, I used to hold Stella.
Me too.
A still a while ago now, but when I watched Consensus and I saw Jed go on stage. I remember him saying on stage, "Oh yeah, we're going to announce a bank today," and then he said, "Oh, he didn't know the price of Stellar," and I went, "Hold on, that's a blatant lie. Everybody knows the price of their coin." Yeah.
Come on.
And then he never appeared.
For days.
Yeah. And then he appeared on. After Consensus, there was just no announcement of this bank, and I thought, right, okay, I already know his history about Mt. Gox, yeah. Okay, whether it's true or not, it makes me uncomfortable either way because I've seen it. I've seen the emails. It's all been all over Twitter. My trust in him just completely dissipated. It just went. So I just took my money out, put it all in XRP. Yeah, because I feel more trust with the guys at Ripple. Okay, let's get something else here. Ripple have also been caught out on a little bit truth bending here now and then, yeah. I can't remember. Oh yeah, well, not truth bending. Over their expectations of being higher than they should have been. Like back last in December 2018, we were expecting a bank to go live. Never happened. Never saw it. We didn't even get told that it wasn't going to happen. Yeah, like delayed or anything. We just went through Christmas. Everybody very disappointed, because they wanted that news. Then we got told a couple of dozen banks by the end of this year. Where are these couple of dozen banks? We still don't see them. And we're coming up to the code freeze period, yeah? So projects don't go live during code freeze, yeah?
Right.
So they may have installed RippleNet into their systems, but if they're going to shift to using XRP, they're going to want, that's still a project, yeah? They'll go live with it, but they'll want their staff there to verify that it's all working and there's no hiccups and all that sort of stuff. But during this holiday season, all the IT staff are let go. In the UK, what happens December, like HSBC, they normally tell their staff, right, you'll go for a month, yeah? December's off, you come back in January, yeah? Some get to stay for, a couple of weeks, whatever. Some other banks, you'll have like backup staff, but it's really sort of skeleton crew. We haven't seen that. Now, I know the banks want to go, I do know that they want to use it. But the thing is, we just don't know where they are with it. And I've also got this other horrible feeling is the banks don't want us in this either. Because did you watch the SMB conference in Switzerland? Was it back in April?
Yeah, I saw not the whole thing, but I saw enough of that's one with the Garlinghouse was there.
Yeah, so at the very end, one of the central bankers at the very end of that conference, one of the central bankers asked Brad Garlinghouse is, what happens if there's a run on XRP? Like we've had a run on the banks, when the banks, people got scared and they took all their money out of the ATMs and banks run dry. You could have the same situation here with XRP, right? Everybody's excited. They've all bought XRP. It's all going up. Banks are buying it.
Yes.
Yeah. We're all going
let's do it.
We're rich. Yeah. Everybody's going, right, I'm taking my money because I want to buy Lambo and a house and all this stuff. Yeah.
Popping bottles, Lambos, man.
These banks, these central banks are sitting on humongous losses because we've all gone nuts because, there's a lot of people invested in XRP.
Time to stick it to them, Lionel, yes or no?
So I got a feeling this is going to be a really slow, boring experience for it to go up. Do you not feel that?
100%. Yeah, I think so too. I think it's
some time. I think time, but it's regulation, man. It's regulation. Look, banks have been slapped on. If on one of my streams, I went through basically
Right.
Wells Fargo, like their whole list of money laundering. So if you're a bank, you get to you can probably just, I mean, it's not killing people, but it's destroying everything. You can go money launder, you can steal money, you can get wrapped for all kinds of stuff. Like their rap sheet is worse than most criminals. And meanwhile, they get a fine here, fine there. It's an operating budget. And then
Let me
you know,
clear up something
you
there.
have like a you have a legal.
Yeah.
Let's say you
The
have the
press,
right to just
the
basically
press.
do horrible stuff, man. If
Yeah.
you're a bank, you get away
No,
with it. If you're a
no,
person like Lionel, you're screwed. You're in jail. You're in the clink in London over there, buddy.
no. Let's just get something straight here, yeah. With these prosecutions and stuff like that, right? These are individuals that have managed to get a job within a bank, who either are aiding this money laundering, yeah. And you know, how are you going to pick these individuals up? You get them in Bitcoin and everywhere else, yeah. You got dodgy individuals, even exchanges. You know, there was an exchange in Canada where the guy apparently died and lost all the keys. You know, I didn't
So
see.
they say.
Yeah, I didn't see the end to that story. He's probably somewhere in the Cayman Islands enjoying his new lifestyle. You know, he's taking all that money. But yeah, the newspapers, you know, they take the piss out of the banks when they do these stories. And you know, what was it this year? There was J.P. Morgan. One of the boats that they lease got done for trafficking drugs. Yeah, had nothing to do with J.P. Morgan. It was a company that leased the boat responsibility. J.P. Morgan has just invested in the boat that it leased out to generate income. JP Morgan go, yeah, right, okay, we're going to lease you this boat and then we want you to traffic cocaine for us. It ain't going to happen.
Yeah, right on.
It's just, yeah, you got unscrupulous individuals that try to get into the banking system anyway, yeah? And for individuals within the banks, you know, all the back office staff and all that, who have to do verification and all that, it's very hard for them to spot it, yeah? It is very hard. You've got the obvious ones, you know, ring up and to do KYC and all that sort of stuff, new clients. But you can have somebody who's an old client who's been with you for years, yeah, and he's decided he's going to become dodgy, you know, because things aren't going so well for him. Now, unless you're really analysing his account, you're not going to see it because they already know that if you're moving less than $10,000, it's not going to get looked at, yeah. Because, you know, when we look at big transactions, yeah, threshold. So you can do a shitload of movement of money, you know, and sometimes it can take a long time to spot these, yeah. And you have to go through a process and all that sort of stuff. Now, what didn't help as well was when the governments decided that they were going to bring deregulation. I mean, I saw the disaster coming when they did that. It was like, if you deregulate the banks, it's of course, you're going to get dodgy stuff coming through. You know, we had new products appearing that didn't make sense. You know, you had those mortgages over in America. That, I forget what they're called now. But anyway, they weren't worth anything, and UK banks bought those as well and got into all sorts of trouble. The banks should never have been deregulated. You know, people want money, and they'll try and get hold of it however they can. We see it on crypto every day, you know, scams all the time. Banks get this all the time. It's just that banks have been around so long, you know, people are all focused on that. It happens on crypto. Okay, everybody talks about it for a day or two and that dissipates. Everything's forgotten about, you know, didn't happen. No, it can't happen on crypto. Of course it can. Of course it can. You can do it
and it will.
Yeah.
So, hey, listen, real quick. Listen, we're coming up. We've actually eclipsed over an hour here, which is crazy because this has been so awesome. So, Lord Lionel, listen, I wanted to really extend a thanks from Jeff and I for joining us on this international, you know, edition of our roundtable on the chain. You guys can learn more about on the chain by going onthechain.io. You can go up there, and if you scroll down, you'll be able to sign up, and we'll start putting. We're actually working on some other things, but just notify you. We're not going to hammer you with emails. We're not like that. We're all into privacy and all that too. But I wanted to thank you, Lionel, for joining us. Any quick parting shot before we go?
I've got so much more to say.
Okay, we're gonna have to invite. Okay, we have to invite Lionel back for a 3-hour edition. We're gonna do a marathon. No, it was really awesome, man. I can't believe over an hour has passed there. Jeff, anything?
It's amazing. Yeah. No, I think this is great, Lionel. I'm really happy that you were able to come on. And I think you're a wealth of knowledge. And then we have to start digging in a little bit more and have you on as a regular guest on the chain. I think, we can break it down because we covered so much, but yet, we're not even, to the guts of it, so we can
dancing
break
around
each
the
one of these
edges.
things that we're just dancing around the edges of what you can talk about and what you can share, so I definitely look forward to that.
I just hope all the FUD stops and people start growing up, and let
Good luck on that.
everything develop. Yeah.
All right, well, listen, this is Chip. We have Jeff. We have Lord
Jeff.
Lionel. Thank you for joining us.
Lionel.
And we are out of here.
And don't forget,